Welcome to Parenting Successful Teens, the podcast that cuts through the overwhelm and stress of this phase and offers parents simple, practical, cognitive, science-based strategies for keeping their teens on track. Join master coach and real-life mom, Allie Irwin, to talk about real teens, real problems, and the skills it takes to raise successful adults.
Hello, everybody. This week, we're going to talk about teenage brains. I love brain science. I'm a super nerd, and so I'm really excited about this week's topic. And I want to start by asking you, what comes to mind when I say teenage brains are? Usual answers I get are something like they're not fully formed until they're over 25. Boys' brains mature more slowly than girls' brains do. They're dramatic, they're impulsive, they're out of control, they're hormone crazed. There's this general idea, this general sense, and it's accepted as common knowledge that adult brains are whole and teenage brains are like unbaked cookies. Like our brains are better than theirs in some indisputable way. Like we have everything that they have plus more. And that really burns my biscuits because it isn't that black or white. And we think that it is. We're also tempted to think that we know better than they do, that we have all the answers, because our answers, our ideas come from our fully developed brains, which are just inherently better than their teenage brains. And I want you to think for a minute what it feels like when you're around someone who thinks that they know better than you do, like just in general, like an overarching know-it-allness. Okay, we've all got that one relative who thinks they know everything. The Cliff Clavins in our life that are always coming up with those little-known facts. It's super annoying. And just take a second and think about how, in a way, when we think that our brains are just better than teenage brains, how annoying that must be to our kids. Now, you might be saying, hold on here. I've heard that the prefrontal cortex doesn't fully come online and executive function and blah, 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 blah. And that's all true. If you are over the age of 28, you do have the capacity to use your prefrontal cortex to make better long-term decisions than you do when you're 18. But just because our brains are better at some things, it doesn't mean that they're better at everything. It doesn't mean that we have everything that they have plus more. There are some things that are unique to teenage brains that are better than yours. And that's what we're going to get at today, is how to leverage the differences in our brain so that we can benefit from their brains as much as they benefit from ours. So I'm going to have to get nerdy for a few minutes, but I want you to stay with me because this information could change everything. Okay, understanding that your kids have things to teach you can change everything. So what we're going to talk about today is that there are two kinds of intelligences: fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. And there are tons of different models of how the brain works. And some say there's 8 intelligences, and some scientists say there's up to 100. And we're not going to debate like which model is, like there is no model that is the end all and be all. Today, we're just going to talk about like one super specific part of intelligence. And that is this model of 2 different kinds: fluid intelligence and crystallized intelligence. Fluid intelligence is the ability to think and solve problems flexibly in unfamiliar situations. Okay, to think abstractly, to look for patterns. And we use fluid intelligence, especially in novel situations. So I want you to think about how to get to some place for the first time. Okay, you're driving to a new job and you don't know how to get there. So you have to figure out, can you walk or take the subway or drive? You have to figure out where to turn or which stop to get off at. You have to figure out how long it's going to take to get there. There's a lot of unknowns. And so you're looking for patterns and you're using your previous experience to solve this new novel situation, to get to a new place. And teenagers have fluid intelligence in spades because so many of their situations are new. Okay, this is the intelligence that helps them figure out how to drive, how to take the SAT, how to apply to college, how to get your first job, how to ask someone out. Those are all new situations that teenagers have to use fluid intelligence to figure out. So we're going to set that to the side. Now we're going to talk about crystallized intelligence. That's what adults have in spades. Crystal intelligence is the ability to use our accumulated facts and skills to do familiar things. Okay, this is when you've driven to work 100 times and you can do it in your sleep. You get there and you don't even remember the commute. That's crystallized knowledge. So you use fluid intelligence to figure out new things, and crystallized intelligence to name the state capitals. One way to keep this straight when I'm teaching this to clients, one way to keep this straight is to just, it is what it is. Fluid intelligence is flexible. It's a fluid. It's like water. Okay. You can pour water into any container and it takes the shape of the container it's in. Doesn't need to have been in a vase before to know how to fill a vase. Okay. It's flexible. Crystallized intelligence is like a crystal bowl that's full of facts and skills. And you just reach into that bowl and you take that fully formed fact and use it in the situation. This is a part you might be asking, like, why does this matter? Why do I care about these two kinds of intelligences? And this is where it gets interesting. Most people in the Western world overvalue crystallized intelligence. That overvaluing has only ramped up in the digital age, okay? If we use Google, like we Google everything, right? Because we're always looking for the fact. We're always looking for thinking that more facts are going to get us what we want. And crystallized intelligence actually feels really good. We can retrieve that fact. If we don't have to struggle to use our brains to solve a new problem, it takes less effort. It gives us that feeling of certainty. We don't want to figure out how to do it. We just want Google to tell us how to do it. Okay, and it makes sense because struggling to solve a problem uses up a lot of energy, and our brains already use a ton of energy. And so they try their best to be efficient. Okay, it's not a criticism. It's just a physiological way that we're made. Our brains only make up like 2% of our body mass, and yet they use 20% of our energy. Okay, and that is our regular brain use. That's not even our brain trying to figure out new problems. And so our brains are trying to keep us safe. They're trying to keep us alive. So brains like things to be easy and certain. Easy because brains use up a lot of energy, like I said, 20%, and certainty because our brains are always trying to help us survive, right? Uncertainty makes us feel like we're going to do the wrong thing, and to our brain, it feels like that means we're going to die. Okay, so it's much safer to just do things the way that we've always done them. Okay, we did them that way before and we didn't die, so let's just do it that way again. And you know this to be true if you've ever been a new committee member who had an idea and had someone tell you, like, with almost scorn in their voice, that's just not how we do it here. Okay, that person shot down your idea because they are relying on their crystallized knowledge. Their brain is trying to be safe and efficient. Doesn't make them evil. It just makes us feel comfortable, makes us feel like we've got a grip on it. Not knowing makes us feel insecure. And in many places, this is fine, but it can stifle creativity and it can make our lives a little bit predictable and boring. And this is where our teenagers come in. They are all about doing new things. Okay, they're all about fluid intelligence. And they're even, God bless them, using it while we are cramming crystallized knowledge down their throat. Okay, all that standardized testing, all those facts and figures that we make them memorize, even though like they really are just going to have Google the rest of their life to look up when, you know, that particular battle took place or what the state capital of Nebraska is, Lincoln. We are trying to give them as much crystallized knowledge as possible, not because it's better, but because it's what we rely on. We, from a genuinely well-intentioned place, are trying to give them what we have, which is crystallized knowledge. Okay. We rely on our facts and skills in order to be successful. And so we're trying to give it to them. Okay. That's very well intentioned. But what we are missing out is on what they have to share with us. And that's a reminder to use fluid intelligence. Okay. Coming up with new creative ways to solve problems. That's what creativity and innovation is all about. And if we can combine the crystallized knowledge, all the skills and facts that we have with the fluid intelligence that they have, then we're going to get the best of both worlds. And I really want you to consider this because the majority of adults have given up on fluid intelligence before they're even 30 years old. Okay, we're so proud of our prefrontal cortex and our rational brain. We use it for everything, but it's really not best suited for every problem. And that's what I love about talking to you all during this pandemic, because the coronavirus, they even call it the novel coronavirus, and it needs novel solutions. Like, for example, when California got a bunch of broken ventilators under normal working conditions, like if you get broken parts, if you get a broken machine, you just send it back. But in a time like novel coronavirus, you need a novel solution. So instead of sending them back and like waiting for more ventilators to come, what the governor did is he rented trucks and he sent them to Silicon Valley. Like he found some Silicon Valley companies that could fix them. So he just fixed them himself rather than sending them back. Okay. It's a novel situation. And so we need novel solution. People who are still using their fluid intelligence are more suited to come up with creative ideas to solve problems. So let me give you another example. Once when my son had a ton of studying to do, he first asked us to buy him this book called How to Think Like Sherlock Holmes. Okay, so I, as his mom, I'm thinking you have a ton of homework and you want to not do your homework. You want us to buy you this book, which you're going to read and then do your homework. Okay, that solution makes zero sense to me. To me, that sounds like procrastination and like you're putting off the things that you need to do this thing that you want to do, which a little bit it is, but it's also he's using fluid intelligence to come up with a creative solution to how to get all this homework done that he doesn't want to do. And so he bought this book and he learned how to make memory palaces. Like the book taught him these memory techniques of how to memorize huge quantities of information quickly. And so he did that and he got all his homework done. He read a book that he liked. He got amazing grades and he did it in a completely novel way because I would have just started grinding through all the studies. I would have felt like there was no time to waste and I would have started making flashcards and redoing all the problems and I would have stayed up late and not slept and probably ended up with a cold because I, as a younger teen, had bought into the idea that crystallized intelligence, like getting more facts and more skills, was the only way to get what I wanted in the world. And so when I asked him like how he was going to solve the problem of having all this homework, I didn't know it at the time, but what I was really getting was a front row seat to see fluid intelligence in action. He came at the problem of a lot of homework in a completely new way. He didn't enjoy doing homework. And so like over his high school careers, he came up with a whole bunch of novel approaches to getting his homework done. And watching that inspired me to come up with creative ways to more easily get the work done that I didn't want to do. And that's what I want you to consider this week, is rather than just thinking of adults as having all the answers and teaching our kids, we need to leverage what our kids have to teach us as well. And that requires a strong relationship, okay? A really strong foundation of mutual respect and good communication skills. And here's the thing, when you try to impose your crystallized knowledge on your kids, so often you end up like they tune you out, like it doesn't even work anyway. You get a that doesn't apply here response. Either they say it out loud or they're thinking it while they roll their eyes. And so if they're not going to listen to you and your ideas of how to solve their problem anyway, instead of getting louder or taking away privileges if they don't do it the way that you want them to do it. What I want you to try this week is to look for ways to just ask them the question, so what do you think you should do about this? How do you think you should approach it? And then listen for their ideas on how to solve their own problems. Okay, practice transferring that responsibility to them. The upside for you is that watching my kids try new things got me excited about trying new things as well. Watching them, their lives get bigger and more interesting as they tried new things inspired me. And since I kind of made this mental switch myself, I've taken Spanish classes and salsa dancing and belly dancing and copywriting classes and meditation and body language decoding and surfing, like literally all kinds of stuff. What I developed was the habit of growing and learning right alongside them, using their fluid intelligence to make my life more interesting. And honestly, that's what led me to think that I could leave corporate America and start my own business. So it made me think I could build a website and do Facebook Lives and even start this podcast. None of that is possible without fluid intelligence because none of it were things that I'd done before. Okay, I had to develop the willingness how to not know how to do things. And having a teenager, you have a live-in example. So I want to close this week. I have 5 reasons why you should let your child take the lead and learn from your child's fluid intelligence. Okay, here we go. Reason 1, recognizing that your teens have the answers is way, way easier than having all the answers yourself. Okay, that's the lie that crystallized intelligence tells us, is that we have the answers and they don't, and we need to tell them. So if you accept the idea that you don't have all the answers and their way may just work, your life gets easier. Okay, reason 2 is that your life gets more interesting when you're willing to learn new things. If you stop learning and growing, you just live the same day over and over, like that movie Groundhog's Day. And so much of that, like just binging Netflix and zoning out on social media, so much of that are really indicators that we're bored with our own lives. Honestly, that's why one of the big reasons I'm so in love with the teen years in general is because the chaos of the teen years shakes us up. It shakes us out of our routines and helps us not rely too heavily on what we know. They give us a live-in role model on how to grow. And if we grow right alongside our teens, by the time they graduate from high school and are leaving the nest, we're ready because we have a fabulous life all of our own. Parents who are living vicariously through their kids, as opposed to parents who are just enjoying being with their kids and like going to their kids' stuff, because those are really different things. But the parents who are living truly vicariously through their kids, the way out of that is to develop your own interests and to use every time you push your child to try something new, use that as a cue to do the same. Reason number 3. Utilizing both kinds of intelligence is a huge competitive advantage. You will be so much better at every other thing that you do if you're open to new and creative ideas. Even if your job is super traditional, being a flexible thinker is a huge advantage. Reason 4. Learning from each other lays the foundation for an adult relationship of mutual respect and interest in each other's lives. And just really think about that for a moment. They will live under your roof for maybe a couple more years. And then after that, you've got decades of an adult relationship. And so it's critical that you use the time that you have right now to lay the foundation for the way that you want to be when you're in that adult relationship. And one of the biggest pieces is modeling respect for the way each other thinks. Okay, that is a foundational piece of adult relationships. And you can start now by beginning to respect the way that they think. Reason number 5. you will have role modeled to them. If you are respecting their fluid intelligence and you're learning from it and you're using their growth and changes to stimulate growth and changes in yourself, you will role model for them a love of lifelong learning. And that will help them keep their fluid intelligence. And it will help them create lives they love, successful, independent, yet connected lives. And because you've developed that foundation of interest and mutual respect, you will get a front row seat to those lives. Okay, I don't mean front row seat and that they're never going to move out, because they definitely will. And you'll be sad that they're moving out because you will genuinely enjoy them. And really, that is the best, is to have your kids have amazing lives and to stay apart, and for you to have an amazing life and for everyone to stay a part of each other's lives. Okay? That's the best. That's what I want for you. And that's why it's worth looking at their brains as not broken or missing things, but as having a different kind of intelligence from yours that you can respect and that you can learn from. All right, everybody, I would love to hear how this landed for you, if this made sense, if you have questions. You can always reach me at parentingsuccessfulteens@gmail.com. And have a great week, everyone. Thanks for listening.